Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Here is another transformation session from Jess, who is working as a delivery architect at Capgemini, USA. So, looking forward for your extra inputs when compared to the other sessions, Jess. The stage is yours. Seriously, looking forward.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, great. So I don't have too many slides for you today, but as I said, I was looking at the series and I became so interested in the series because I myself was I had a few dreams actually as a young child, and it wasn't working in Marketing Cloud. I can tell you that. But where this really stuck out to me is that one, Matt and Lakshmi, I really appreciate you guys helping out the entire SFMC community, and that you're really trying to just better someone's journey within the very confusing and sometimes abstract, nuanced path, especially in Marketing Cloud, right? There's no sandbox environment. There's so many confusing things. We have pretty much documentation as our Bible, but there's not a lot of guidance unless you really know and work with someone or even work within a platform. So, kind of operating with blinders. And I'll say that this sort of resource is invaluable, and hopefully this kind of speaks to many of the aspects of SFMC careers globally. So I'm calling from Chicago, by the way, born and raised in Chicago, and I, how I'm approaching today's presentation is from the perspective of, what fundamental things have I built pre SFMC that have allowed me to really flourish. And the first slide, if you go to the first slide,
Matt.
Matt.
Yeah, yes, we've had a bit of distance, so we're having a lot of computer issues today. I'm just bringing up the deck now. So it'll
Oh,
take
okay.
a couple
Okay.
of minutes.
Yeah. Take your time.
We've
Take your
got to
time.
love
No,
we've got to love the internet, and we are doing this live. So if you could just carry on, and I'll have the deck running just as soon as I can.
no problem. No problem. So, yeah, my approach is after reviewing the greats of Greg Gifford and Robert Cameron, this guys who I love watching, and you've got a few other folks who've done some transferable skills YouTubes as well, which is great. I began to notice that it's a lot of technical skills that are required, right? Not everyone comes from a technical background. Certainly, I wasn't starting off with a technical background. I just get a little bit about my background, a little bit my upbringing, which you'll hear more about later. Um, is I came from a middle class family, born and raised in Chicago, lived in inner city Chicago for 25 years. My mom happened to choose a really good public grade school. I chose to go to the best public high school. Always had fairly good standardized test scores, but I've always been kind of a middle of the road student who's kind of just naturally strong at math, but lacked a lot of focus and struggled with some health issues. But that's kind of allowed me to forge my own path in a really unique way. I've got a recent book that I've started reading actually is about finding your personal and professional range, they call it. And their book is called Range by David Epstein. It's turning out to be a really good book. And you'll see in my kind of resume that didn't make it to LinkedIn. So if you go to that slide, if you can, when it does get loaded, the next one after that. Whoa! If I put this on my LinkedIn, I'd probably never be hired. So this is what I was doing on through grade school, on up to actually putting on my big boy pants and making some real money, right? So this is like a little bit after college, even well after college, and still doing some side hustle stuff and doing all sorts of crazy things. So the idea behind range is that you've got personal and professional range, and you're going to develop and leverage skills based upon another beginning that you've had. And maybe that beginning has turned into something greater. Maybe it's turned into something that you're moderately good at, right? So through this breadth of experiences, and I was really wrangling my brain, and I wrote an entire history of everything I've ever done, even well beyond that, like I said, in more mid-career and current phase stuff. But for my early career, I thought it was really important to list all these different things here, because the point here is that if you've done any sorts of these things, right? So if you've played video games, if you've ever been a salesman, if you've played high school football, primarily bench warmer, if you've done any of these things, you can definitely make it in SFMC, because it's all about your take on it and how you're leveraging your past experience and making your tomorrow better, right? So that's just a part of some of the skills, which I'll get onto later. But again, if you were to just look at all these all-encompassing things, and I've probably left out a few things here too, powerlifting and some foodie sort of related things, but all sorts of guitar playing, all sorts of things that have made me a better SFMCer. I highly recommend you check out that book range and begin to, if you haven't already, expose yourself to many, many other things. And instead of maybe following the Malcolm Gladwell rule of 10,000 hours to mastery, want to maybe become the jack of all trades. And not to say that being a master of SFMC is bad, but with that, you're eventually going to see a peak, right? And I think if you follow Greg Gifford, and he's got a really great leadership series that's coming out lately on his blog, he's kind of tapping into leadership fundamentals, and him being, an SSJS wizard and SFMC wizard overall, inevitably, as you grow within your career, and as you grow maybe into principal or principal consultant, or not consultant, but maybe you're going to peak to an extent if you become master of the domain in SFMC. So it's only inevitable that if you could want to continue to grow, you've got to expand your wings on leadership. And you might look at these roles, this array of roles here, and you might think, wow, Jesse, what does being a radio DJ or music director have to do with anything? What does a mascot have to do with anything? How does that make you stronger? Well, it teaches you work ethic. So if you go on to the next slide, whenever you do get to the next slide, you're going to see that, it's really that these are the fundamental qualities that I believe that I've been able to build in those early years, those pre-LinkedIn years. And those are things that you're not going to see on my LinkedIn. So I totally invite you to connect with me, by the way, on my LinkedIn, Jesse Wu, currently working at Capgemini, but you'll be able to see the more professionally tailored resume. And I don't want to miss this part here, though, but it's about the qualities that I've been able to develop over that course of time. And of course, there's skills that you're going to develop later too. But I'd say the most fundamental quality is confidence, right? It's confidence in knowing that what you've done in the past is making your tomorrow better, and that you've taken something positive away from no matter how negative of an experience, and you're seeing that glass half full instead of half empty. Now, and one of the things that I do mark here and highlight as qualities here, though, is to be open-minded. And by being open-minded, you're sometimes playing devil's advocate. You're sometimes seeing only the most pessimistic way, and sometimes only the most optimistic way. But I do highly recommend that you always look at things from all sides and multiple angles for not only dealing with others as a manager, but also crafting solutions for your next technical challenge that you may have. So confidence is key, though, in knowing your worth and knowing how to approach your story is also key. So one of the really great things that that I've been able to learn over the years, and this is not just when being interviewed, but also interviewing, the best answers by and far come by way of the STAR method. So the STAR method, you can Google it: situation, task, action, result. Right? You want to make sure that you tee up every narrative, every story in a STAR method sort of way, so that you can speak to something confidently and know that, and inspire yourself that you've solved the problem, that you've observed, you've taken action, you've seen the result, and that you've been able to learn from those results, whether it be good or bad. So I'd highly recommend that, if confidence is one of your struggles, that you look at all of your experiences, no matter how invaluable you may think, and apply them to today. Now, I'm not saying walk into an interview and you talk about how, something totally unrelated to project work should be an example in an interview. But what I am saying is that challenge yourself and, think back to personal and professional experiences every day and think about what you've learned and think about how fortunate you are today. And the other grouping of qualities that I'd like to focus on is being a self-starter. And that's being proactive with really ambiguous direction and being highly organized. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be either, all of these things. Hello, is my audio back?
Right now, yes.
Okay, great. So, I'm definitely not the most organized person on the planet, but there are things that I really leech onto with organization. And it's the organization of my work. It's the organization of random and notes that I have that are a little bit strange, but there's things that I really hone in on and decide to really organize them in a really great way. So the next grouping category is being a leader, but also being a collaborator. Oops. Yeah, you can stay on that slide. We don't want to necessarily just be a leader. We don't want to be talking to a group of people and talking only. One of the biggest challenges of leading teams is having only that leader mentality and not that collaborator mentality. So, I encourage you, if you're a current leader, if you're a burgeoning leader, to make sure that you're encapsulating both of those qualities as you begin to grow. And one of the best ways that you can do that is to really become more empathetic and begin to understand other people's stories, begin to understand other people's motivation, and knowing that every body is different. That could be mentally, that could be physically. Everybody's got a story. So make sure that when you're speaking with your teams, whether you're currently a subordinate or you're currently the leader, that you exemplify hopefully all of these qualities, but especially both of those qualities, collaborator and being empathetic. All three of those qualities in every team meeting and every interaction that you have. And of course, in my array of my also large array of experiences in my resume the non-LinkedIn resume that I presented there, we've got to develop a degree of professionalism and a degree of respect. And you learn that over time. That's where I think that the 10,000 hour rule of mastery comes into play, is that if you're going to work remote all of your life, you're probably going to clam up a little bit when you meet someone, face to face and you have that first handshake, right? It's going to be a little bit strange, a little bit different. So we're in a different world. Things are opening up. Things are a little bit different, but the degree of professionalism that you develop, it comes with experience, and experience, I believe, creates excellence. So, I'm not a complete, in opposition of that 10,000 hour rule at all. Definitely not. In support of it in many ways. And I think that professionalism is crafted. There's a way of conducting business, and things are changing, of course, but respect is always at the top of every team's mind, and as well it should be. And then also performing well under pressure. That's also within that same grouping, and that goes into professionalism, because I've been on a handful of teams that have crumbled under pressure. Luckily, I've been able to keep my composure. It's just my own nature. But I believe that, by really thinking things out as they happen, reflecting on them, having debriefs after every large action or result, is really important. And the next grouping is responsible, reliable, accountable. We want to make sure that you're just acting in very responsible ways. So if you're currently a developer, front-end developer, no SFMC background, I've run into a few developers, not trying to say that that group is the one and only group in the SFMC world that's kind of I gotten burned on with a few project deadlines, but it happens often. I would love for all, not just developers, everybody to be a little bit more responsible and accountable and reliable, especially relating to deadlines. And if there's creative due at a specific time and date, hey guys, that's when it's due. And if there's a reason for that lateness, don't be afraid to speak up. Just communicate. Just keep that line of communication open. That kind of goes on that next on that last grouping there. Which I'll talk about now is that we do want to make sure that we're not just a clear communicator digitally and within project management tools and verbally, but also on paper, that we're clear on paper digitally and digitally and also verbally, and that we're not only clear from an English perspective or native language perspective, but that we're also informing our teams and the people that work with us whenever needed. Sometimes you can over communicate, but I've yet to see over communication be perceived as a bad quality. Public speaking is something that I would also say that I've definitely built up over my years of not necessarily being a mascot. In some ways, yes. I was probably the only Chinese Santa that you've ever seen parading around inner city Chicago. But public speaking can be developed in a variety of ways. And I think that, within any career, especially if you aspire to one day to be a consultant or even lead teams, that public speaking ought to be one of them. And you better believe you're going to be flying by the seat of your pants in many days and probably every day in some situations. Being open-minded and adaptable to change is also one of the things that I touched on earlier, and that seeing things from all angles and multiple perspectives is really important. And again, making sure that you're viewing all of your experiences in a valuable way and knowing that there's value in every single thing that you touch, see, hear, and feel. And I think, and I can relate it to, you guys might know the electronic music DJ Fatboy Slim. He's gone on record as saying that there's really no bad musical sample. He can get something out of every record that he plays. He can find some dose of good out of every composed music that he's ever purchased. So that's kind of the same way, and the same way that you should think about life experiences, in that you can really take something good away from everything. And then I saved the best, largest group for last, and that's being passionate, right? You want to be passionate about the things that you're learning. Inevitably, by way of being passionate in something that you're learning and doing, you're going to be intellectually curious and wanting to do better. Being a high achiever, a striver, even a perfectionist to a degree, and giving it your all and putting it all on your table and developing incredible, crazy work ethic of the likes of David Goggins, right? And that will go through extreme measures to do something in near perfect form. So that work ethic is only going to develop over time. And of course, that's going to help you with creative solutions. So if we go to the next slide, these are just qualities that, and I'm sorry, I already did tell you about the next slide, but you can keep it here. But I'll say that those qualities are fundamental to the things that I look at every day whenever I interview someone, any role, any seniority, because I'm looking for those qualities probably at about the same weight as skills. Honesty, respect, integrity, those things I did not necessarily list, but those are among some other things that I look for in terms of qualities. So again, not saying that you don't need the experience and the things on a resume to develop, but you've got to make sure that you're also developing in a soft skill, in a soft quality, personality quality sort of way. as well as developing your harder skills. And I didn't want to belabor the skills section here too much because you've had some really great presenters thus far that you've been able to have been able to weigh in on some of the fundamental core skills needed for SFMC and growing your SFMC career. I'm just going to rehash the HTML, CSS thing, SQ, front end, back end SQL roughly. There's the data analysis part, which I'm really fond of, and still find that that's a major gap in the SFMC world, believe it or not. So I think that if you're currently a data analyst and maybe you're looking to break into SFMC, that there's a good possibility you can make it. I view that as a large gap that is yet to be filled. Yes, there's Datorama, courses that you can take and you can become better at. But I really feel like, in almost every, and not almost every, but in a lot of project plans, that analytics are somewhat overstepped as being a primary concern. And without measuring your success, I don't know how the project will be successful. So I'd say that in your next project, make sure that you're, leveling up your degree of knowledge around data analytics and also the measurement of success and the measurement of everything that you do, and especially the outcomes of projects. And of course, email marketing went a little out of order there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that email marketing was a major part of my journey, and that's the crux of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. I think we all realize that. But there are, I've had about a decade of experience or more in email marketing, and you learn that over time. But I'd say that unlike professionalism, you can pick it up pretty easily through a book too. There's nothing like being in the seat and having the wheel on an ABN test, and talking with your analytics group and doing all sorts of things in the jack of all trades email role sometimes. But I'd also say that among those, those are kind of the 4 core skills of SFMC that you'll want to focus on. And then to further that, we want to make sure that we're connecting business. So one of the things I didn't mention is business. There are clear business skills that we all need to understand, because every company, every employer that will ever hire us is always in the business of making money. Even if they're nonprofit, they're always in the business of making money some way, shape, or form. So we've got to be able to connect the dots of a business plan to the results. And I have always found that the best way to do that is by using scientific methods, such as think about it like a science project, or even the graphic that I'm sharing here today. We can always ask that question, do background research, or observe, right? Then you form your hypothesis, then you test it, right? And then, you go through the procedure and you share your results and conclusion. And that's, in its most high level way, that's what every new thing is attempting to do, or even everything that you've done before. If you're running an email campaign day to day, you ought to be looking at it from a scientific perspective and seeing what's different. What could I have done better if I would have done it this way or that way? You can go to the next slide. So overall, I talked about when interviewing, there's really a few fundamental things that I look for. Not a few, but if I were to really boil it down, and I've boiled it down as far as I could in this presentation, I've had a lot of content. I chose to focus on the early career stage here. But if you're aiming to really succeed in a Salesforce Marketing Cloud, you really want to be able to showcase that you've got a solid history of figuring things out, and that you can just see an enormous mountainous challenge and be able to conquer it, be able to develop a creative solution, or maybe not so creative solution, but hey, it's basic and simple and it works, right? So you've got to, I would advocate for you to develop a STAR method around that narrative, around a good 1 or 2 stories around figuring something out. And I'd probably tee it up as, that mountainous challenges, whether it be a personnel thing, overcoming that, or whether it be an actual technical challenge. And being able to overcome that is something that I would view as an extremely positive thing in an interview. And advancing the business using technology and efficient processes. Marketing Cloud, it's increasingly basically in the business of automation, right? It's what can you do with less man hours, sometimes less moving parts, but hopefully less moving parts and an easier way to configure way of doing things. So at the end of the day, that's what your story should also revolve around, is how did I take my employer or my business to the next level? Just using, if it's not Marketing Cloud, how did I do it using this other tech tool? I've extended offers to people based on the fact that they've taken something non-Marketing Cloud related, and they were able to really think of a creative and novel way to do something with a different sort of outside tool. And just being able to create that sort of process and telling that narrative would be extremely powerful. And again, as previously stated, and in terms of applying that planned and measured approach to the things that you do, like I said, every employer's in the business of making money, and you got to make sure that your approaches and your steps, maybe not tracked at a micro level with every single thing, but you've got to make sure that, the narratives that you are sharing, you've got a result to share. You've got a measurable result that you can share with the person who you're speaking with, whether it be your current manager or your future manager, that you've got a calculated approach to how you did things and that you had a positive result. And sometimes not always positive, but that you learned from your actions. And then, of course, I'm going to double click on that confidence aspect. You've got to have confidence. You've got to know your worth. And if you're thinking about the next step in your career, I think about my step in my career here. I dove right in. Sorry, I didn't even give you guys an intro to who I am, what I'm about, where I've come from. A little bit about where I've come from, but not in a professional sense. I made my first pivot into consulting after about 15 years on the client side. And it's all on the corporate side that I've gotten my array of experiences. And it was only after speaking with a friend that I was able to really hone in on knowing my worth and being able to realize that I can request and all someone can say is no to a salary of my liking, right? So put it out there, know your worth, know what's in the marketplace, and be confident with it, not in just your next salary figure, but also in all of your experiences that you've obtained over time, even if it's not SFMC related, or even if it is. What's not necessarily that important is what you did, but how you did it and what you've learned from it. So that's kind of my words of wisdom here for the SFMC crowd here today. Are there any questions?
Just getting my video back up and running. I might just kick it off. I've just made some points as we've gone through, Jess, and I'll just sort of summarise some of the things that really resonated with me. You talked about flying by the seat of your pants, and today we're flying by the seat of our pants. I've had a fail on the internet at my end. I know you're having all sorts of issues, but we're all here smiling. So it's so important to be able to smile and just roll with the punches. So I think that's part of that professionalism and confidence that you're talking about. When we do the edit for the video, we can take a lot of this stuff out and make it so it's nice and big on the screen and stuff like that. So, don't worry too much. There's always options and working through it. You said about buying to benefit, and it's so much about share the result. And it's not always that we're going to have a successful outcome either. But if we don't try new things, we don't learn. And it's just so important to be doing that. Your story, I think, has to really talk about that stuff, how we learn, and that's all our stories. You'll pitch 10 things. One thing will get past the goalkeeper. You've got to be doing it, because don't get hung up. If it doesn't work, just move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because it's a team sport. Everyone's got to be on board with it, but we've got to have ideas, and it's part of our leadership style. You mentioned what Greg's doing and the leadership series that he's running. I believe that Salesforce Marketing Cloud How To are also digging deep into that. And it's something definitely to watch out for over the next couple of months. My takeaway on that is that we've got to trust ourselves to be authentic, to get the right outcomes that we need for ourselves. And that sort of goes back to what you're saying about deadlines. If there's a problem, talk it out, talk early, because at the 11th hour, it's always too late. But if we know ourselves that we've got a problem, that's our leadership. That's our stepping up and being able to approach the group and the confidence. So we've got to talk about stuff. So that was my take on that. Confidence begins when we have trust in ourselves to start doing that sort of thing. I feel as though that's a really good topic, actually, for a whole workshop in itself. How to deal with pressure, how to have trust, how to be able to talk about deadlines without feeling put upon, how to communicate. We need the content, because you're pushing us up against the wall. Those sorts of conversations are so important inside Marketing Cloud. We've got to be able to have them, because they can burn you out if you don't get it right. Really, they were just a couple of the comments and just some of the feedback I had from what you said. I really do appreciate what you shared. We do have one question that came up beforehand. I'll just get that up on the screen. Lakshmi, have you got any comments? Is there anything that really stuck out for you in the presentation that Jess has just shared? Or
Yeah, it's really nice to see the learnings from Jess' story. I was just thinking I'm the only one who is struggling to get into MC. But there are so many. There are so many. And being an architect, thanks for sharing everything genuinely. And, technical stuff, yes, we can get it from Google, but all these inspiring, aspects of life, it will come only when the person is ready to share. And
I think that's such an important thing. Like, I fell into Marketing Cloud. It wasn't a career path. I think Jess said much the same thing. And Jess, what are your thoughts about that? It's not something you think you're going to do, is it? Marketing Cloud?
No. So yeah, much like you, it's been very much an organic experience, an organic journey. By happenstance, you saw, like I said, I presented all of my odd jobs. I put it all out there, all the things that would typically get a recruiter to look the other way. I decided to put it there today, put it all out there on the table. And, just to really illustrate that, yes, I kind of fell into it too. I came in to an Oracle instance that was literally managed by nobody, an Oracle Eloqua instance. Sure enough, I saw all of its shortcomings. Sure enough, I needed to advocate for a new ESP. And lo and behold, I eventually landed on Marketing Cloud, among many, many others at that time. And the rest is history. So, I'd hate to say that it's by way of luck, right? But I'd say for many beginning SFMCers, if you weren't coming in from Indianapolis and exact target office, it might just be luck. It might just be right time, right place, right? And Salesforce was doing some good things at that moment to really compete against other best of breed ESPs. So I'd say that the more experienced crowd, we've likely got some similar stories across the board here. Especially if we talk to, like I said, those who have been around a little bit longer in the SFMC space, because it started from nothing, right? Everything starts from almost nothing. And yeah, it's a different road. It's a different journey to success than today. Today, you've got significantly more certifications to obtain. Today, you've got significantly more resources that you can study. Doesn't mean that it's easier, let me tell you, because I can tell you the specialist exam is much harder than it once was. I can say that the blinders are still on, unfortunately, and that you still can't get a good environment to practice some of the things that you're learning. So that's unfortunate, but the resources are actually quite a bit better. So that's good news. And yeah, I forgot what your question there was. Sorry, I've got some disruption here in the background, but yeah, what was your initial question?
I don't think there was a question. We're just reflecting on how to get started. And you were sharing, it's organic and just being in the right place at the right time sometimes is half the trick. Well, they've been a little bit nicer if it was easier than that. And very true, without having sandboxes or dev environments or demo environments to learn in, it becomes very difficult. But I guess we've got to forums like this to help. And the main point of these transferable series is that it's not all just about having access to the tools. So much of it is about your head and making sure that you've got the right stuff in there beforehand. That's not the tech stuff; it's the soft stuff, as you said. One of the questions that we had on the chat beforehand is, and this is addressed to you, Jess. I would like to start Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Guide me with content syllabus, ideal daily routine, etc. So that was directed from somebody in the community, one of our members. Obviously, they're starting and they're looking for guidance with best practice for getting started, I think that's a takeaway there. What are your thoughts on that, Jess?
Just getting started with Salesforce Marketing Cloud in general, I'd say first and foremost, I think as a practice, and most consulting practices would agree with this, is that you've got to show your interest and dedication to SFMC. So make that first, impression by getting your certification, right? Start with admin and specialist. I mean, you've got to show that you've put in some work there to become an SFMC expert. So, I think that's one of the key things. After you've done that, you can kind of craft your path within SFMC and, determine where you want to land as developer, more of a BA role, or just more of a, on the client side, maybe managing email operations or something along that lines. But you've got to show that you've got skin in the game. And by and far, the best first step is to make sure you go ahead and get that admin and then specialist cert. And then you can decide on consultant developer later. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, but you go ahead, and I just got a comment. You keep going, Jess.
Yeah, and then along with that, it's not just making sure that you've got all the certifications in the world. I mean, transparently, I'm only 2X certified technically, but I've got a boatload of experience, and I've interviewed highly, highly knowledgeable people that have worked at Salesforce for over decades. They don't have any certs, but they know the product beyond belief. So it's not all about the certs if you've got the experience, but if you don't have any experience, it is very important that you're showing skin in the game, and showing that you're dedicated to the community and dedicated to SFMC, and showing that you're an active learner. And I haven't necessarily seen on a resume yet that any sort of trailhead ranger or any rank status or anything, but that would really stick out to me. I'll tell you, if I saw that and someone showed me that they've got 100,000 points and that they're past the mountaineer and all this other stuff, they've earned all these badges. So I'd say that would be really special to me. But that's very much related to what I said before, is that showing extremely strong interest in SFMC. And if you're not doing that, maybe showing a competitor ESP, showing some significant work that you've done in acoustic, in formerly Silvercup, in Eloqua, Responsis, all the typical big guys. And there's a whole lot of, the ESP market is still crowded as it was a long time ago, right? So foundationally, that's going to help you build on those email marketing principles. I think that's key, and they're going to see where you really lie within those experiences. Do you tend to be more of an ops manager? Do you tend to be more of a front-end designer, more back-end things? Are you more so collaborating with engineering teams to get some systems connected? Are you more on the analytics side? So I think showing your experience and having very clear stories about your experience is also critical in a relative ESP form. So if you can gain that sort of experience, I think that would be really valuable. I'd recommend the ESP route. Certainly, there's other complementary technologies and complementary forms of experience, but those are the two biggest things that I would look for if you're looking to break into Marketing Cloud. Is email marketing experience. It's a blank canvas. You show where your colors lie, and then also hopefully an SFMC cert, or at least commitment to achieving it within X amount of months, and maybe having a B condition of employment.
I feel like we've got another topic for another main event. It's Salesforce Marketing Cloud career paths, because there's just so many. You don't have to be a dev to get into Marketing Cloud. There's a consultancy side, and there's also the dev side. And also, there's a lot of overlap, and definitely agree about those certs helping. There's just so many other things that you've talked about, Jess, earlier. But if you are a dev and you do want to get started, and you just haven't had a chance, and you can't even get onto any of the other big platforms, don't forget, Marketing Cloud's just an enterprise platform which has got more bells and whistles for controlling the environment in a big corporate sense. Just learn how to write a responsive email. And that's another topic for another workshop, how to do responsive emails, because like Jess said, Marketing Cloud's about sending emails. At the core of it, if you know how to craft an email that's responsive, that works across all browsers, and you've got a dev mindset, that's a great skill to have, because you can learn how to use the tool. That's easy. Learning how to press the buttons in Marketing Cloud's really easy. It's the content that you put in there that's hard. And that's all the transferable stuff, both like we're talking about, both with the tech skills and also the hard skills and the soft skills. There's another question on there. Lakshmi, would you like to read out that question from Asmit on the chat?
Yeah, Asmit, can you unmute yourself and speak out?
I'll make you a presenter, Asmit, just so you can ask your question.
Yeah.
Set as host. You should be able to talk to us, Ashmit. Lakshmi, would you like to read the question out for Jess?
Yeah, sure. Asmit is, he's online. Can you unmute, Asmit?
Yeah, thank you. Morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I just wanted to know about what kind of roles are in demand. I mean, I'm looking for transition. I've already done my email search back in 2020, but after that, I didn't get any chance to go through it again. So I did it for a POC for a client, and then after that it stopped. But yeah, I have been following up with the Marketing Cloud, and so just wanted to know what kind of roles is in demand. What is a guided path for a Salesforce developer to transition it into Marketing Cloud consultant or dev probably. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there's related to demand. I think that there's still demand in the market, no matter how soft the market is. I think that the number of SFMC needs are still below what the market can provide. That's me personally speaking. I still feel finding quality developers is a very difficult thing to do. What is quality though? I guess, depending on what seniority level you're looking to come in, that can vary, right? So if your role and responsibility and salary expectations are, that of a much more senior person, then you're expected to have much more senior experience, right? So you're expected to know all of the core applications within Marketing Cloud and know how they operate, know how they connect. Now, you being a Salesforce developer, you've got a pretty good leg up. There's a surprising amount of people that have SFMC experience, but no SFDC experience. Not knowing how to configure MC Connect, not knowing how to configure distributed marketing, right? So you've got a significant leg up there. I think that getting exposure to some of those projects would be a tremendous help. Now, getting an employer to trust you coming in from the cold, that's a different story. That's, people skills, salesmanship, a lot of other things. But, all things being said, I think that from a tech skills perspective, there's significant room for an SF developer, SFDC developer to make it over into the SFMC side. We here at Capgemini, our I'll say in terms of relative size, Salesforce consultants might outclip SFMC consultants by way of 5-10x. So it's pretty significant, right? So, and I'd say that those that have both SFDC and MC experience is the great minority. So I think that you're coming in kind of hot as a prospect in the marketplace. Yes, the market is a little bit softer overall, especially around SF in general. But I think by you having both, and if you add on, I don't know really what your email marketing experience is or your other, more advanced SF experiences, but if you really lean into those configuration aspects of those two integrated applications, I think that'll really go a long way. MC Connect and distributed marketing, where a lot of that configuration actually happens a lot on the DC side.
Oh, that's great.
I was going to say, I totally agree with that. If you've got both skill sets, especially with a practice, you're just so more transferable in the practice. So if you've got core skills and you want to move over across to the marketing cloud, then obviously the practice, if you're working for a practice partner, then you're going to more likely get on the core skills. But if you're showing initiative towards marketing cloud, then you're going to get those opportunities. They're going to come up. But having that broad base is going to make you much more marketable and a more valuable resource to the organisation. So definitely that's something to lean into and to lean on. Saying that also, functional work, dev work, but functional work, being able to have those conversations, being able to enable solutions to come together with the consulting, they're also really valuable skills. And you need to know the product, you need to know how it works under the hood. But if you're working as a bit of if you're running discovery workshops in core, then the same skills that you're applying there are going to apply in Marketing Cloud. It's the same deal. Same deal anywhere. You could go into AWS or any of the platforms. You'd be applying those same skills right across the board. So all that stuff's transferable.
Yeah. And I think that there's too much gray area right now in terms of that integration too, in terms of the two ecosystems. There's a lot of companies making big digital transformations, and with the minority being those that understand both core and Marketing Cloud architecture, I think that even the blueprinting process, there can be a heck of a lot of room for improvement there. It's, Salesforce, you've got all sorts of design patterns. You've got different ways that a solution architecture document would look versus a Marketing Cloud document looks completely different. I think that there's room in the marketplace, period, from a consulting perspective, one that Capgemini might take a lead on, that, there's significant room to grow in the way of integrations too. So, Ashmit, I'd say that, you'd be considered a hot prospect in my eyes if I've got if I've got a project lined up for those integrated skill set.
So, Jesse, as per your insight and Matt's insight, as well as Lakshmi, what should be the next step to take? Because, I've seen Marketing Cloud, it is a big ecosystem. It's a world in itself. SFDC is different, SFMC is different. It's a world in itself. So what should be the next step to start with? And as you mentioned, there's a lot of scope for integration between two orgs, between the SFMC and SFDC. Yeah,
I might go first and let's just take it from there.
Yeah,
So
please.
I just want
And Lakshmi.
Matt,
Yeah.
I just
Okay,
want to
Lakshmi,
just I have a client call at 9 o'clock. So Ashmit, for your information, I'm not working in SFMC. I'm still looking for, the entry level role of SFMC, but still I was just listening to all these things and adding all the transformation skills, or I'm just getting an idea how can I represent myself that I have this particular skill or which can be transferable into MC. Right now I'm working in CRM and literally looking for SFMC role. So if you
Yeah,
are into
we are on the
SFMC,
same page.
yeah, definitely you need not look for the next step. The role itself will take you to the next role.
Yeah, but as
Correct.
in part of, I was talking in terms of skills, like what skills to develop so that, to get into that
So,
kind of
so
role.
if you ask me, like if I have to share my own view, like AMScript, SSJS, and then CDP, these are going to hit a very huge ground. So maybe if you can attend the other community events like CDP sessions or boot camps by different, experts, that would really help you to have the conceptual skills. But already you have an org access, and your partner or your employer will be allowing you to what should I say, extend your knowledge or skills. Maybe you will have a better opportunity to explore all those things in terms of org, not just listening. That's what I
Right.
can add.
Yeah. Last month I attended for the Data Cloud in Melbourne. It was good. Yeah.
It's not just last month, it was
Yeah.
scheduled till the next month end, so just keep
Yeah.
focusing on the things of events, right?
Yeah.
I think what Lakshmi mentioned are all good things, but keep yourself in the conversation. Attend events like this. There's lots of them. And I'll send out a link after this email with all how you can find all these Marketing Cloud events. Attend them. Keep it the conversation. Ask questions. Talk about your story on LinkedIn. And I'll share about how you can do that. But just keep yourself in the conversation so that people are seeing you. If you hide under a rock, nobody's going to know you're there. And I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying make sure you're visible, because if you are, then, Ashmit is a go-to person for that.
Yep.
Jess?
Thank you. Yep.
I'm sorry, my audio and video dropped out for a moment. Is there something that came through?
No, they didn't. Did you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah, my presentation part is done though. Happy to continue taking questions or expand on any topic. And I know I hit it pretty high level with a lot of soft skills. Again, I saw that, many of your other former presenters really hit it pretty well and comprehensively. So I didn't want to rehash or, redo the same thing. So I kind of took a different take on it. So if there's anyone that has, my hope is that there's someone in here, or that there was an RSVP or maybe a future YouTube audience member that's going to view this workshop or view this presentation here. And maybe they've kind of contemplated transferring over from being IT or from being a paid ad specialist at some company. They want to take dip their toe in the water of SFMC. And, being able to inspire that sort of confidence in them, I think is really important, and to grow the community, and of course, grow the product popularity as well, to keep us all busy. But, giving them that sort of inspiration, giving them that sort of confidence that they'll need to really make that next step.
Thanks so much, Jez, for the presentation today. It's been wonderful and awesome and good.
It really resonated very well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Lakshmi and Matt. And please reach out, continue to stay in touch.
Sure, I will.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ashmit.